Well, there's enough fucking around with you. Time for that long hike home. What the fuck is going on out here? Oh, you've gotta be fucking kidding me. So Night of the Living Dead tells the story of a group of people held up in a house when the reanimated dead gather outside. What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Romero's of the Dead review series. So for the rest of this week, hopefully not week plus, I'm hoping I can get it all done this week, I'm going to be going through all of George A. Romero's zombie flicks, basically. I know that there's others like The Crazies and everything, that's why I'm calling it the Of the Dead. This is Night of the Living Dead. I'll do Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, Diary of the Dead. Pretty sure that's all of them. But I'm gonna do all of those and then finish off with the ranking. Thought that would be a cool little review series to have this October. Dead has kind of been the theme of this October with Evil Dead and then this, and I'm gonna try to do Reanimator. That might get pushed in November, but nonetheless, starting off with the original Night of the Living Dead, the first film that kind of kicked off the zombie subgenre, at least for what we know it to be today. And this was actually the first time that I've seen this movie all the way through. I've seen pieces of it. I tried to watch it all the way through whenever they released the Criterion Collection version, but it was very late at night, so I only got about 2/3 of the way through it and fell asleep, and time got away from me, never got a chance to go back to it. So this is the first time I've seen this movie in its entirety, and you are getting my raw, unedited thoughts of somebody in 2019 watching this film that was made in 1968 for the very first time. So starting right off with the positives for Night of the Living Dead, you gotta give this movie respect for kicking off one of the biggest subgenres out there. I'm not particularly a huge fan of the zombie genre. There's definitely some that I love. I just got done reviewing Zombieland. As far as horror comedies, that's probably one of my favorites. I love the actual remake of Dawn of the Dead, the Zack Snyder one. That's probably my favorite zombie flick. I love the 28 Days Later, 28 Months Later. But other than that, I have ones that I like, ones that I'm not really too fond of. It's not really a genre that draws me in too much. But, like I said, you have to give respect for the fact that this movie kind of created a lot of the tropes and the rules and the expectations that we as horror fans have from this genre, as far as how zombies are supposed to behave, what their ultimate goal is, how they kind of look, the rules on how to kill them as far as shooting them in the head, setting them on fire, how people tend to react. This is kind of the first time you have kind of that siege feel where people are, you know, held up in a small isolated spot and the dead just start multiplying outside and the numbers become more of a threat than the actual bites. A lot of those things came from this movie, so again, you have to give respect and commend this movie and George A. Romero for coming up with all of that all the way back in 1968, which must have been extremely shocking back then to see what's on this film. Moving on from that, I like the gore effects that we get. It is in black and white and it is very tame to today's standards, but if you try to put yourself in the perspective of somebody in the 60s, there was some pretty extreme shit in this movie. You got, you know, basically raw meat that's getting eaten by these people that's presumably human flesh. You've got corpses at one point that's like got everything in its face eaten apart except for the eyeballs, which I'm curious why that body never came back to life. But nonetheless, well, we're not going to get into logic issues with zombie flicks, but you have that. You have like where hands are coming through the doors and people are slashing at them and fingers are coming off. Some really good practical gore effects for the 1960s. And I really like the main character, Ben. You know, he's a premier character for this movie because inadvertently he was like one of the few African Americans that got a big lead in a movie like this. And there is some social commentary that we can debate whether or not George A. Romero meant to do or if it was unintentional and people are just kind of reading into it whatever they will, which that's kind of the beauty of art. But him as a character I really like because he kind of comes onto the scene and he knows what to do. He's not as afraid as everybody else. He's the most level-headed. He's the most take charge. He's not really taking anybody's shit. Like when you get the dude who comes out from the cellar and he starts running his mouth, Ben just shuts the shit down left and right, knocks him out at one point. He's always in the forefront of the plan on how we're gonna get out of this or how we're gonna survive. So him as a lead, I really kind of got into this character, and I did want to see him survive all the way through to the end. And you've seen this movie? Oops. Now, speaking on the social commentary, I know that there is a lot of things in this movie that George A. Romero supposedly is on record for saying that he never intended it, but it just kind of ended up that way. But nonetheless, there's a lot of things that you can gravitate towards as far as themes or as far as, you know, something that this movie has to say within Night of the Living Dead. There's some social commentary about, you know, government and how they deal with situations and how they deal with crises. There's some commentary in here, if you really want to get into it, about racism and how you have this one singular black character who's kind of lived his whole life in fear for the racism of the time, and now when you get into this larger-than-life situation, a lot of the white people in this house don't really know what to do, and he, having lived his whole life in fear for certain aspects or certain things within society, he just, you know, doesn't really have the fear of this situation because he's already kind of accustomed to it. And then you obviously get to the ending where he prevails through all of this and survives, and then you have the white sheriff that, you know, yeah. Again, it's one of those movies, you can take it at face value, you can just watch it as like this tragedy, as this horror film in the zombie genre, or if you want to dive into a little bit, there's enough there for you to grab onto to get a little bit more out of this film than maybe was intended. And the movie does have a nice little subtle, eerie tone throughout it. Obviously, it's diminished quite a bit over time. It's not gonna hit me the way that it would hit somebody in the late 60s, but you watch it and the movie does have this nice little progression of dread.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
This progression of this eerie tone where, you know, there's one zombie that's keeping them out and you don't really know what's going on, and then all of a sudden there's 5, and then they walk past a window and a bunch of arms shoot through it, and now it just feels like there's nowhere to go, that feeling of isolation in this house, and then the kind of brewing insanity inside of the house where you have people that are in this extreme situation that start reacting extremely and, you know, don't really treat each other the best and don't really treat each other like they actually want everybody to make it through it, and they're just kind of worried about their own self-preservation. A lot of those things that, you know, have become kind of cliche for these types of movies, like I said, started here, but it's done well. Now moving on to the negatives, and as I've kind of prefaced in the beginning of this review, understand this is the first time that I've seen this movie, and it is 2019. I have had almost 30 years of zombie films that I have seen that have come much later than Night of the Living Dead. And with that being said, this movie is very tame for me to watch. When I look at it, I can appreciate the fact that it started this genre. I can appreciate the technical aspects of what was pulled off in 1968, especially for a low budget and for a genre that hadn't really kicked off yet, so there's a lot of creativity here. But the movie was a bit of a chore to get through because what I want to see in a zombie film and what entertains me in a zombie film, the few that I actually do like, was just sprinkled throughout this one. So this one, it was difficult for me to say that I was entertained throughout. It's one of those movies that I would say I appreciate more than I enjoy. And a big part of that was the pacing of the movie. Yes, there's this nice little subtle, you know, ratcheting tension, and there's this nice little subtle increase of dread. But as far as the pacing of the story and the pacing of this progression of characters and, you know, the more people that end up in this house and the progression of the zombies on the outside, it was a little bit meandering for me. You know, it didn't really have a quick pace to it. It didn't really hold my attention all the way through. There was quite a few spots where I kind of felt myself wanting the movie to get to the climax. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that it's just a different genre now. So what I know about these movies, what I expect to see, what I kind of go to these films for, Night of the Living Dead just didn't have it, and it's not the movie's fault, it's just the reality of the times. But beyond all that, I didn't really care for the characters in this movie either. Like I said, I really liked Ben. Beyond that, I didn't really enjoy any of them. I don't know if you were supposed to a certain degree. They were supposed to be in such mania that they weren't really likable, but pretty much every single character, even Barbara, who kind of shows up and you'd think is going to be your protagonist for a while, Didn't really get anything out of her either, which also didn't really help the movie's pace going along. That there's only one character that I really like, and the rest of them can really get eaten fucking alive as far as I care. And my final negative, which is unique to this film, but again, it's kind of just a recurring theme from what I know zombies to be. It was very strange to see this early incarnation of the undead where they're smart enough to like grab bricks and throw bricks through windows, or they're not just like mindless zombies like we've come to know from TV shows and movies of the past however many decades, but they're a little bit smarter. It's kind of like the proto-zombie, if you will. Not to say that it was bad or didn't work for this movie, it was just very strange for me to see zombies do things that I'm like, zombies can't do that shit. So all in all, guys, this one's a kind of difficult movie to review in 2019, seeing it for the first time, because a lot of the things that are hailed for this movie being a classic, I can appreciate, but I just don't necessarily enjoy it the way that people that either grew up with this movie or saw it in the 60s or 70s or, you know, just grew up loving Night of the Living Dead. It's a kind of difficult movie to insert yourself into this late in life. So enjoyed it for what it brought. I can appreciate the hell out of it, and I definitely respect it for what it did for this genre and for what George A. Romero was able to do on a tight budget with a concept that was kind of just getting birthed. But not particularly a movie that I enjoyed a lot, and probably not a movie that I'm gonna rewatch anytime soon, just being honest. So if you like the classic era of film in the 50s and 60s, then this is probably going to be right up your alley to see how this subgenre of horror got kicked off. But if you're like me and you're much more used to the modern version of this story and of this genre, it might be a little bit dated for you to enjoy. So know who you are walking into this, check it out online, and stream it. So what do you guys think of Night of the Living Dead? Is this one of your favorite films, one of your favorite zombie films? Are you pissed off and cussing me out in the comment section right now, telling me I never like anything? I love when I get that one. Let me know your thoughts on Night of the Living Dead, or do you understand where I'm coming from? Have you seen this recently or just been introduced to this film recently and you kind of get what I'm trying to come across very respectfully? So let me know your thoughts on Night of the Living Dead down below. Let me know what your favorite movie in this entire little Romero series is, which one you're looking forward to me reviewing the most. Excited to get this review series off the ground because most of these films, pretty much without the exception of Dawn of the Dead right here, I'm seeing for the first time, so it's going to be kind of a unique experience. Let me know down below. Also down below the video description, you have social media links like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and my Patreon page, which is a great way to give back to this channel, help this channel grow, and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only if you decide to become a patron. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you are not already a subscriber. And if you guys want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.